For a while now, I've been wondering if I was going to do a video on this little rifle. Well, if you're watching this, you probably know the answer before I do. Welcome back to Canic Air. What I have on the bench today is probably familiar to a lot of you. It's a Crosman 760 Pumpmaster. One of the longest lived and probably most mass produced and inexpensive of Crosman's lineup of pneumatic pump guns. I remember these when I was a kid, but I don't remember this one. And there's probably a few of you out there who may have a 760 Pumpmaster and go, that doesn't look like mine. And, well, it doesn't surprise me too much considering they changed them a lot over the years. Introduced apparently in 1968, and they had a cast metal receiver at that point and wood furniture. And over the years that changed, morphed. They went to styrene plastic stocks, and then later on in the 1970s they switched over to ABS, which is a different type of styrene, but apparently more durable and more suitable. The receiver, of course, went from being cast metal, probably I think it was a zinc alloy, to this plastic. I'm not sure what kind of plastic this is, but it's actually surprisingly good, isn't it? I mean, I kind of ignored this gun. It sat in a corner for ages. I got it in a deal. Didn't really want it, but it showed up with another gun that I'd bought. Not really interested in BB guns, but, you know, there it was. I just kind of sat it, wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, and then I just kind of did a bit more research on it and found them, you know, they're a bit more interesting perhaps than I thought. The early versions, the ones made in the 1960s and 70s with all the metal pieces and whatever, are commanding a fair bit of money. I guess people collect anything, right? So there's going to be people out there that have to have every last version of the Crosman 760 and its variants. And how many of those are there? Well, as far as I can tell, this one is variant number 9. It says starting back in the 60s, but this variant introduced in, if I got my cheat sheet here, 2001 this one came out, and that one's identified by the fact that the front sight went to fiber optic. Let's see now. Oh yeah. This was also the one with as I discovered, a 5-shot clip. I remember these guns. There was BBs. You got them in there one way or another. I don't exactly. I think there was just a port on the side here for the longest while. But pellets. If you're trying to shoot them with pellets, it was just a little sort of a trough, kind of like a single-shot adapter on a current PCP type rifle, and you just drop the pellet in there and push the bolt forward and shoot it. This one doesn't work that way. It needs clips to hold the pellets in place to feed them through, and it didn't come with them. So anyway, somehow I couldn't resist and ended up getting a couple of these things. Not entirely clear on how they work, but let's have a look here. I think on the diagram it showed the little handle tab part goes to the rear, so it goes in like that. And you feed it on through, I guess. Maybe. Yeah, it can only go that way. Oh yeah. Yeah, it clips it. And it is manually advanced. It isn't a repeating type where it clicks onto the next pellet. You just have to literally click it on through. So, I mean, you have to spend a little bit of time loading these things up, but once they're loaded, then I guess you can shoot a little bit quicker, and I guess there's less chance of dropping your pellets on the ground. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense. But yeah, so as I said, this is the 9th variant. Since then, they've the 10th version. Apparently, they deleted the barrel, went back to being smoothbore. That was news to me because I didn't even know this was rifled. But according to some of the information out there, this should be a rifled barrel. It's kind of hard to see down there, and I can't quite tell for certain. So I was planning on taking it apart anyhow, because the serial number on this one suggests it was made in June of 2005, which makes it almost 20 years old. So and it doesn't really look like it's been used, so there's a good chance some of those lubricants have got kind of sticky and gummed up, and I'm kind of curious to see how it works anyway. Many moons ago, I did service one of these for a fellow since I sort of restored it. It was his old air rifle from when he was a kid, and it had the plastic stock, but it did have the metal receiver, and the paint had kind of chipped off and worn off on it, so we repainted it. The barrel had kind of rusted and lost its bluing, so polished that down and did some cold bluing on it. It was pretty basic refurbishment, but it looked great. So he was happy. He was thrilled because he'd had that gun since he was a kid. So he was quite happy to get that and looking good again. I'm not sure how much he shoots it, but just one of those things. Like the big hole that goes up in there where the stock attaches. Later versions of this gun, since this one, they've made them with a more slender tapered forearm, which I think actually looks a little closer to what the original rifle did. 760 Pumpmaster is an homage to or replica of a Remington 760 Game Master, which was a center-fire rifle introduced in the 1950s with a pump action. And so this pumps this way, of course, but yeah, so Crosman saw an opportunity there to style a rifle. It looked like a big game rifle, and that was what they did. As I said, the new ones, the forearm has gone from being less of this blocky shape, which some people rather like, and I think kind of I do too. More of a slender tapered one now. I said I think they dropped any rifling, probably, and also they've since got rid of these clips. So this was on a couple of generations of them, and they've gone back to just the drop-in tray. So that's kind of how that works. And there's a lot more variations out there too. They've made them over the years with different colored receivers. I think they've even made them with different colored furniture. Well, they certainly had black furniture on them, but they've also, I think, done them in bright colors like pink and what have you. The sights are fiber optic now. They used to be used plain metal. Some of them were adjustable. There's a little more adjustment on them. This is just a straight ladder. You lift it up for that. I guess if it shoots a little bit to the right or left, you just give it a bend. This little switch on the back here is, and I don't remember that on the ones that I played with when I was younger. I never had one of these, but I had friends who did. You load the BBs in here, and by shaking and rolling a bit, they end up in this little trough up top here underneath the receiver, and you can see them apparently through these little holes. That they're there on purpose. And when you cock it, BB drops down and is picked up by the little magnet on the front of the bolt and feeds it into the gun ready for firing. This switch allows the BBs to roll into that loading gate and then keeps them up there so they don't fall back out again. Or if you want to unload the gun, according to the instruction manual, you pull this back and you shake the gun until all the BBs disappear from here. Weird thing about that is there's still BBs in the gun. They just can't make it into the barrel to be fired, I guess. So yeah, interesting gun. I'm gonna pull it apart and just clean it. As I said, I'll check to see if the barrel is indeed rifled. Yeah, let's have some fun with this thing. First, some vital statistics on our 760 Pumpmaster. Comparing it to the Crosman 140, which is an older gun from the 1950s, Pumpmaster is not only a bit shorter, but it's definitely a bit more petite in terms of its girth and what have you. It only measures 33.5 inches long. It weighs 1.17 kilos, which is pretty darn light. That's 2 pounds 9 ounces. I think I got air pistols that weigh more than that, so it's a pretty small gun. If you've got eagle eyes, you may have noticed the screws in it have these little square recesses in them, which is a rather Canadian thing. That requires a Robertson #1 screwdriver, which are always green. If you're in Canada, you'd know that. They don't seem to show up much other places in the world, but yeah, they were the screws had a regular slots in them too, but I definitely pulled out the Crosman, the Robertson screwdriver because they do work so darn well. I really shouldn't have removed this one. I realized later that this screw I should have kept in place until I'd got the rest of the pieces out. And there's just one big Phillips screw, not Robertson in this case, but Phillips screw that holds the buttstock on. And it kind of was helpful to remove this because the plate that this attaches to kind of grabs the two halves of the receiver together. So good idea to get that out of the way. Probably should have done that the very first. Now, having serviced one of these some years ago, I do remember that these are rather tricky to get apart. There's a lot of spring tension on a few things, and this one is surprisingly stuck. And I do put that down to, yep, okay, there goes some pieces go flying. I did put that down to just see some of the lubricants had just gotten kind of really tacky and weren't allowing it to come apart as well as it should have. Yeah, trying to use spring-loaded tweezers to grab a spring. Not the best idea. Yeah, you can see the sort of the lubricants have got sort of that orange varnish look to them, so that's going to need to be cleaned. This bolt piece is just mostly made of plastic, aside from that little magnet they have on the end of it. That's one of the things that they changed over the years when they figured out that they could make things out of some pretty tough plastics instead of more expensive metals. There's that piece that went shooting across the floor. That was the clamp for the buttstock, and also rolled away was the safety. So with access to the back of the barrel, I soaked some patches in some solvent and pushed them on through, and thought, well, you know, this gun doesn't look like it's been used very much, so how bad could it be? Apparently pretty bad. Kind of disgusting. I just figure that's got to be some sort of oil from the manufacturing process. Since I've run out of 177 specific patches, I've been just cutting 22 caliber ones down in half. Fortunately, they do the job. Still coming through pretty grimy. And more of them. Eventually pushed some dry patches through and just kind of decided to call it a day. Looked down the barrel and, yeah, it is rifled. So now the barrel is reasonably clean. Still fairly dark down there, but I wasn't going to spend the rest of the day pushing patches through it. Anyway, I put some oil on the pump cup, nice silicone stuff. Lubricated the transfer port there. Drop of oil in there to keep things, get it go down into the valve okay. Yeah, we're going to try to put this thing back together again. I went over double-checked everything on the parts diagram just to make sure I didn't lose anything when it all popped apart on me. I was worried that there might have been a pin through here, but according to the parts diagram, no, there isn't. So, yeah, we can get this all back together again. It's kind of like a game of kerplunk, but you're just waiting for things to spring apart on you. How this works is ingenious, of course. You know, it's beautifully designed and engineered, very clever. This part right here is the disconnector. So when the bolt, little magnetic tip there, let's grab onto things. When the bolt isn't all the way forward, it pushes this little lever down, which stops the trigger from being pulled. When it goes forward and into the barrel, this springs up, and you're able to pull the trigger at that point. Very clever. This big spring right here is the main rides on the sear, which is here, and it goes over there like that, and pushes upwards into the piston tube, which is what locks the hammer in the rear position. When you pull the trigger, it pulls this tab down, and the hammer is able to slam forward into the valve, letting air up through the transfer port down the barrel, pushing the pellet or BB out. This goes in there. The other interesting little ingenious thing about this is the end of the spring here rides down this little channel right there, and it's actually what provides the click stop on the safety. So a little fiddly to put all the stuff back together again. I'm sure at the factory they do it in a matter of seconds, but it's going to take me a little bit longer than that. So let's see what I can do. I have to admit, it took me a while to figure out what direction that spring had to go to operate the disconnector. And I finally figured that out, so that was one problem solved. I'm trying to squeeze all these parts in together at the same time is a little tricky. Again, as I said, I'm sure people at the factory who practiced at it just did this in a matter of seconds. You can probably appreciate that I've speeded this up 3 times for you, so. I kind of figured out the smart thing to do is once the parts have clicked into place there, hold the barrel in by putting that screw in. The one I should have waited until I took it out. I figured that little spring there that holds the safety in place, well, I was pretty sure that put the receiver back together again and I could just pop that spring over the safety and put that in after it's all back together. However, I was wrong. So, take the receiver apart again. You notice, however, that since everything's clean and lubricated, this just comes off a lot easier than it did the first time and didn't eject anything across the room. So, yeah, put the safety in first. It's not that hard to do. So just pump it up a little bit of pressure here to see if make sure it's working properly. Safety is definitely working. Well, with it all back together and looks like it's working okay, the first thing to do, I guess, is to fire it across the chronograph and see how it's actually performing. And keeping in mind this is a Canadian market version of this gun, which would suggest that it shouldn't get above 500 feet per second no matter what you do. So let's see just how we can figure out how these little things work. They actually work kind of well, actually. And the depth of it suggests you could put in as long a pellet as you liked. All those pointy things would work just fine. So, okay, so and these are just Crosman dome pellets, the inexpensive ones from Brazil, 7 grain. Kind of appropriate ammunition for a gun of this sort, I suppose. But let's see just how it does. 420. That was what, 5 or 6 pumps, I think. So that's encouraging. Let's give it another 5. If you don't close the bolt, it won't fire. 389. That's quite a bit different, isn't it? Maybe it was 6 pumps on the last one. $382. Okay, yeah. So 5 pumps in the 380s. Okay. Let's see if apparently maximum pumps on this thing was 10. So let's see how far we can go. Usually it's a law of diminishing returns with these things. Put a lot more effort for those last few pumps and you don't gain a lot in terms of velocity or power. So, but let's see what we can do here. We'll try 8. Okay. 468. $482. Okay. $481. Okay, so and those of you out there might be wondering, well, how does the Canadian standard work at 495 or 500 feet per second? They apparently that is the standard is an 8 grain pellet. These are 7 grain, so they're going to go a little bit faster. So it's quite possible with 10 pumps we'll see it go over that magical 500 feet per second rating. But again, that wouldn't really matter unless there were 8 grain pellets. The earlier versions of these guns, back in the day, before the rules about the 500 feet per second came in Canada around 1978, so the earlier versions of this gun actually would exceed over 500 feet per second with standard pellets. So they are actually PAL-rated guns. In other words, you need a possession acquisition license to buy one or own one in Canada. So it is kind of weird. An inexpensive budget-minded gun ends up being a you have to have a firearms license to have one these days. But the later versions, no doubt, they have found ways to throttle back either the valving system. Maybe the transfer port is smaller, or maybe there's a little smaller reservoir chamber that you pump up. I'm not really sure. There's different tricks they can do to do that. So let's see. Oh yeah, we're going to go with, right, we're going to go with 10 pumps on this one, and I have to pump it first. Alright, gotta cock it again. Okay. 500 on the nose. Okay. And even though these were obviously aimed at a very much a youth market, the younger kids would have a hard time getting that thing up to 10 pumps on a regular basis, I'll tell you. $4.98. $4.97. There you go. So right around 500 feet per second with the lightweight pellets. So next thing to do is to give it a fair shake, is to take it out to the range, see how we can shoot with it with some accuracy. And what are we going to use? Well, we'll try these pellets for sure. What else could we pull out of the thing? Those, probably a little too heavy. Superdome, Field Line, also on the heavier side. But these are actually pretty good pellet. Maybe we'll give those a shot. And old favorite, Meister Kugelns, 8.2s. Do I have lighter ones? Yeah, 7.7s. We'll go with those ones. All right. There's 3 pellets there. And I guess I'll see if I can find some BBs. I think I've got some tucked away somewhere. And the fiber optic sights on this thing are... well, they're not the best for accuracy, so I'm going to mount this scope on there. And you might ask why I'm putting such a large scope on there. It's because I don't have a bigger one. This is going to be going to give the rifle its best shot at just seeing just how accurate it is. It does have a rifle barrel. I'm surprised by that. I know they went to smooth bores. I did remember that they were advertised as having a button rifle barrel back in the catalogs, back when these things were under $30, around $30, and their main competition would have been the break action rifles that were coming into Canada from the Eastern Bloc countries like Hungary and Czechoslovakia at the time. So yeah, these were definitely up against it because the Eastern Bloc rifles often sold for around $20. So these things are a little more money. They had the advantage of having, dual ammo, BBs and pellets, variable power as opposed to just one break action. But there was no denying that the break action rifles for me were kind of what I, aspired to want to own. Just they were, they just felt more solid. These things are certainly lighter weight. The plastic stocks are certainly a giveaway to that. But and these later ones with the plastic receivers, which are surprisingly sturdy. Like, this is remarkably strong. It's not flexible or flimsy feeling. It's actually quite good. Again, this isn't a gun that I'm going to treasure. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it after I'm done trying it out. But well, we'll take it to the range and see what it can do. So I sighted it in at 10 meters and just used 10 pumps for everything I was trying. I wasn't going to get too fancy with it. I figured shooting around 500 feet per second wasn't going to distress any of the pellets. So it didn't take too many shots to get those Crosman dome shooting pretty much to point of aim. 500 feet per second. 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 500 So my very first shot with the Crosman domes, it was like smack dab in the middle. This is looking good. That big scope is helping. Okay, that's a little bit further field. Okay. Oh yeah, I speeded this up 5 times. I really can't pump that gun that fast. Hey, look, it goes down the middle again if you want it to, you know. But, yeah. We ended up with a 70mm group, so 2 3/4 inches for these inexpensive Crosman dome pellets. The RWS Meisterkugel 7.7 grain woodcutters definitely turned in a bit of a better performance. They seem to suit this barrel a little bit better, I guess. Shooting a little bit to the right and a little bit lower than the Crosman domes, but definitely a little tighter and closer together. So not too bad actually. 22mm. And the other RWS pellet I picked is the Super Dome, the heavier one, 8.3 grain. These first 2 shots didn't look too encouraging, a little bit further spaced apart. But then we start just filling in the gaps. And we end up with a fairly, slightly more impressive 21mm group, so not so bad. Well, I found a package of what's left of some Daisy Quicksilver BBs. Price tag here says I paid $1.45 for them, so it might have been a little while since I got my last bunch. Wonder if they still cost that now. Okay, we're getting there. Not bad. Okay. Well, they are BBs. They don't gauge the rifling. Hey, that's not bad. Right down the middle. Okay, not bad. This is looking good. Looking good. And one way down there. Okay, so a 3-inch group. So if we can safely assume we don't have the makings of a 10-meter match target rifle here, we can certainly put the Crosman up against its more appropriate target, the found in the wild pop can. So I have here a little template here that approximates the size of this can, and we can compare it to how we did on our targets. So with the Crosman domed target, if you have the gun sighted in nicely, which a couple of shots do go right through the middle there, you will hit it with every single shot, which is not so bad given its fairly inexpensive pellets. We move on to the Meisterkugels. Well, that's easy. You can start to decide what part of the can you want to hit. This is at 10 meters, 33 feet, which is probably about fair distance for this kind of gun. The RWS Super Dome, little tiny bit smaller group there. And again, when you start shooting at small groups like that, you can probably decide to do little trick shots if you get good at it. You know, decide to hit the bottom of the can, top of the can, and make it spin in certain ways. So yeah, this gun is certainly appropriate for that. And when you move over to the BBs, well, we can get several of pellets on, but this one is clearly a miss. So yeah, that's kind of to be expected. So, but this gun does have a rifle barrel, and it does do pretty well with the pellets that it likes, and even the cheap pellets. You know, it'll hit the pop can all day long. With you know, so it does come down to a bit of marksmanship on the hand of who's learning to shoot this thing. So, yep, not a bad little plinker at the end of the day. Well, this is the part of the video where we admire the deeply grained fine woods, the precise checkering, the beautifully polished deeply blued surfaces. Well, this isn't that kind of video, is it? Obviously, this gun is, you know, inexpensively made for, you know, to be sold to a very wide youth market as a lightweight, easy to use, not very intimidating, you know, air rifle. And it is an air rifle. Of course, if you shoot too many BBs through it, you'll wear the rifling out, and, well, then it becomes an air gun. But, Yeah, my time with this 760 Pumpmaster, looking at it with a more critical view than the last times I've played with them. Yeah, I kind of respect them a little bit more. I have to recognize that a whole host of youngsters got their start on a gun just like this. They learned marksmanship and having fun in the sun, blasting away at pop cans, and in some ways that's way more important than all the finely crafted European precision instruments that we covet and lust after so much. These guns have their real place in history. They are a far more important air gun or air rifle than a lot of the other much fancier stuff. Not quite sure what lies ahead for this one. Let's see if I can gift it to somebody who's going to appreciate it. Or maybe I'll just spend some more time in the corner. I don't know. But anyway, thanks for watching. Canuck Air will return. Consider subscribing.